Welcome. My name is Diane Skiba, and I have the honor of interviewing Roy Simpson today for the IMIA-NI project called Nursing Informatics Development, Implementation, and Evaluation over 5 decades, personal accounts and experiences from international experts. Welcome, Roy. It's nice to see you.
Thank you, Dr. Skiba. It's always great to see you. You're one of my heroines of life. So I am honored to be with you. It is always great.
I was very excited that I'm the one that gets to interview you. So
I know.
let's start by having you first describe your journey into informatics. What was the pathway you took? How did you get involved?
So the pathway to informatics, I fell backwards. And there it was before I knew it. But it actually started originally when I was in a diploma school in nursing. I look back now, and that's where I engaged. I had a project to look at for what we used to call clinical nurse specialists, and looking at a diabetic clinic and to see if we needed any more. And I had a phone system that you pressed 1 if you needed the nurse and 2 if you needed the doctor. And I got enough data to go in as a student nurse for my senior project and get more clinical nursing staff. And I was enthralled with how data worked. And then as time went on, I became a nursing director at Emory University, and they put in a patient class. And so I understood data a little bit more. And then when I got to HCA, one of the things that was the greatest thing was I was in information services, because they really didn't know where to put a corporate nurse at that time in the 70s. And the only way I could manage and understand hospitals was through data. And so that engaged me in that part. And the part that I had the most difficulty with was understanding the clinical component of nursing. And I met a wonderful lady by the name of Harriet Worley and Norma Lang, and they convinced me I needed the nursing minimum data set. And so with that and my dear friend, Dr. Diane Skiba and Dr. Judy Ronald, I moved forward in understanding more about informatics. And it's kind of an interesting journey when we look at that word processing at one time was informatics, and now machine learning and Python and R are informatics. So it's been a wonderful journey.
Yes, and since you didn't mention it, I will. You were instrumental in starting a scholars program that really brought faculty on board to try to understand and appreciate informatics as content that maybe all nurses needed to know something about. So we appreciate that of you. It sounds like your primary involvement was really administrative, and now it's academic. Is that true?
Yes. That is true. With a journey through the clinical romps and fields of informatics, yes, that's a very true statement. Yeah. And that journey of working with you and Dr. Ronald in developing the scholars program, it also taught me the value of research, because I remember we had to do a business plan for why we should keep this going. And you had all this data. And I'm like, where did you get this data, Dr. Skiba? You're like, I'll sit in the same room with you, And that's when I understood the real power of writing business plans with data and how we moved it forward. So it was good. Yeah.
Well, we have to thank Judy Ronald too. She was insistent that we always assess everything, collect all the data, make sure that we could actually pitch this program so that it could continue.
Yes, it was great. A great program.
I'm sure over the time that you got involved in everything, you have probably had some mentors or people who have really inspired you to keep on this pathway, because you're still on it. So
I did. It was not an informatics person. It was a nurse executive by the name of Mary Woody, who is today identified as a living legend. And when I received the President's Award last year from the American Academy of Nursing, I gave tribute to her because she said to me, being the first male admitted to stand licensure in Georgia in the 60s, she said to me, Roy, they're going to watch you. You're a man. And I didn't have a clue what the hell she was talking about, but people do give you tips for what's going to happen in your career. And she was very instrumental. And then I had a lot of friends along the way. I mean, friends, deep friends. You know, you did an enormous amount for me. Judy Ronald did. I remember I told Judy Ronald that I was going to write a column in informatics. She's like, Roy, are you sure you can write? It wasn't that I had a knowledge of informatics. She wanted to know if I could write. And, you know, it just, I mean, I had a lot of support structures that, you know, Virginia was all good to all of us when we formed the IMIA and the NI aspects of it, the ANA aspects of it, the NLN aspects, and started moving things around. So yeah, Mary Woody was very instrumental. And I think today I still have mentors. Vicki Hertzberg, who is a biostatistician that works with me at Emory. My dean is very engaged in data with climate control, and you just understand more and more and more about data. So it becomes a big part of, but the friends along the way through the professional orgs are what make it. I mean, I have lots of international people who have helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah, I think in those early days, it was very collaborative because we were all struggling to all understand what this was. And, you know, I think when we started, it was computers in nursing, and then it evolved into informatics.
Yes, it had a trajectory, and it was very collaborative. You know, we didn't have a cadre of people back home that were in your shop, that you were the sole practitioner in your shop on data and informatics, you know. So it was really important, that collegiality.
And I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people and gotten them mentored and everything. If there's anyone you'd like to recognize, please share with us.
Yeah, you know, I never thought about myself being someone that inspired people to achieve it until I went to Emory to start in the DNP program at Emory. And Emory's an R01 school, and I had worked at Cerner, my corporation that I'd been with for 15 years, with a wonderful lady by the name of Courtney Omari. And Courtney had gone to Carnegie Mellon, and then she went to Johns Hopkins. And so when I told her that I was going to be leaving and I would be at Emory, she left the university she was at to come to work with me and be a student of mine at Emory. And Courtney today is Dr. O'Mary. She works in big data. She's helped me develop NEL. She has done things on her own. She's presented her own research. She's educating faculty. I mean, she is awesome. She rocks. And, you know, she's a lot younger than me, so she'll be around. So I think you should look out for Courtney Omari in the future. You know, she's going to be one of those stars.
That's great.
Which is nice.
That's what we need,
Yeah.
our next generation.
Yeah.
Can you tell me sort of what do you think was the most rewarding aspect of your informatics work?
You know, that is a deep question, because you, as an informatician, are across many spectrums. And the Scholars Program was clearly one of my highlights of work and moving the discipline forward. And as crazy as it may sound, I've lived long enough now to see that dissemination. You know, I mean, at the National Institute of Nursing Research on this past week, Sue Bakken told my boss that I taught her in informatics and that you and I were there. And I just burst out laughing because Sue is so awesome. And, you know, and so you then get to see, you know, a lot of the other scholars that really went out and they did things in different models. And it really did make an initiative. And to me, the greatest contribution was it recognizes that corporate has a social responsibility. And I think when corporations go wrong is when they no longer identify that they have a social responsibility to the profits that they make. And that's where we get into problems with for-profit and healthcare. But I think the Scholars Program was probably something that I could see over time. I think today, the greatest thing is the Center for Data Science at Emory that I fostered with Vicki Hertzberg, my co-chair, and I've gotten an R01 grant, and I'm not a researcher, and I have postdoc students. I mean, working with Vicki has been very rewarding. So I went from one spot to another spot, but I think the thing that is the thread through all of it is I really have some great friends to work with. And it makes a difference, you know.
It does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What were some challenges that you faced as you were entering this discipline?
There are some humorous ones. My most favorite humorous one is Harriet Worley. Because she was convinced that I was not a nurse and that I clearly was an engineer because I was a guy, period, the end. That was her whole, and you know, she was just constantly like, well, a nurse, you went to nursing school? I mean, you know, she was just great about it. So those are some humorous ones. And I think some of the more serious things are the alignment to ANA, the alignment to NLN, the alignment with moving from SCAMSI. I mean, you know, I don't want to bring up our past, Diane, but you know, you were the secretary and I was the treasurer for 12 years. I mean, we couldn't get anybody to take our positions. So having people in now and to see them actually vote on people for opportunities is like, wow, we had to beg somebody to take on, you know, and so it's really nice to see that growth. It really is.
And I think too, with the Scholars Program, we were really trying to get over a lot of the challenges in academia.
Yes.
That, you know, people kept saying, no, nurses don't need to know this.
Right.
And I think every one of those scholars walked out of there committed to getting this into the curriculum and really pushing for it. And, you know, like you said, Sue Bakken and a lot of these others have very successful careers in the field.
Oh yeah, you know, Connie Delaney's now a dean and well, retired dean. And you know, when you look at the challenges that we had, I think one of the challenges that I find when I look at corporate roles in nursing that people seem to be like they're brand new, but they've been around forever, is that it's not the corporation, it's the people in the corporation. And if someone's not dedicated to nursing, they're not going to get it through. That's the challenge. I mean, I've seen people crash and burn in corporate America thinking they're coming in as the chief nurse of informatics, and within 2 years, they're gone because they didn't have that passion for nursing and informatics. And it's really key. And that's a challenge. It was also always a challenge in that you weren't always revenue producing. Sometimes you were a labor cost, and people had a hard time until you got that first grant or that first funding, and or you bought that first system and you were the driver of helping them choose the right system. So those were great times. And I'm sure there's many more. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you have lots of advice, so we would like you to sort of mention some key things that you feel that that next generation could use.
So the first thing that came to my mind when I was asked to do this IMIA was when I spoke in Brazil, and I got a standing ovation. I had never gotten a standing ovation. I never knew why actors were actors and actresses were actresses, but I will tell you that did more for me personally to have that happen in a time when we were just starting out in our profession. It was really powerful when that international community engaged me to move forward. That was like a catapult to my career emotionally. I'm like, oh my God, somebody else believes what I think, you know? And that's just like was shocking because you don't expect people to think exactly like you, and for them to give you that validation that what you were saying about where our future was going and what we had to step up to was very important. And I've always been appreciative of that with IMIA. Yeah. So that's one advice, is be sure and be involved in international. The second thing I think that is important is, and Mary Woody said it to me, you should always be about the patient. Don't be about anything else when you're about your data or what your work is. It's all for the patient. And when you get off that track is when you get into trouble. It's just when you get into trouble, you know? And I think probably the other advice I would give is, I just was with the CDC yesterday, and one of the things I learned is they have what they call upscaling technical skills. And today it's R, tomorrow it's Python, the next day it's Java, the next day it's this. And, you know, I may have used Excel spreadsheet a million times in corporate. I can barely use it today, so I have to figure out something else that I'm going to use. And, you know, it's just not unusual that you're in a lifelong learning discipline.
Yeah, definitely. I would
Yeah.
agree. And I think people need to take advantage of being engaged in organizations
Oh, yeah.
and, you know, different things so that they can stay up to date.
Yes, yes, because I think upskilling, you have the theoretical constructs, you have the theoretical understanding of how things are put together, the complexity management of data, but the skills that you need each day come with a different package every time somebody does something. So yeah, it's true.
Wonderful. Well, great
Yeah.
gems to share with our next generation of informatics professionals. I want to thank you so much for allowing us to do this interview. And I will be so excited when we get all of our honorary members done so people can see what the past was like and how a lot was accomplished by many pioneers in the area, and you are one of them. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Roy.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honor. I appreciate it. Bye now.